going to look at the goods market, and we shall denote the goods market using IS, the IS. So whenever we say IS, we shall mean that we are looking at the goods market, the real sector. What is IS? So IS is a framework. Keynesian, in this video, we'll be interested in the Keynesian framework, the IS framework. So this is an equilibrium point where investments are equal to savings, but depending on the levels of interest rate and the total income in the economy. So, and a level of interest rates and the level of income, as we have seen in the previous explanation, that they affect each other. How they affect each other would make investments to equal savings. So it is an equilibrium position where investments equals savings. So in short, the framework is called IS, to mean equilibrium position in which savings equals investments derived by the levels of interest rates and the levels of income in the economy. So in the goods market, we can also use a graph to explain the IS, or the goods markets, or the equilibrium levels where investments are equal to savings. So first of all, we shall look at the investment function once more. That the investment function or explanation is that the total investments expenditures equal to some level of investments which we have called autonomous investments. But of course, we also have some levels of investments, the BI, which are affected by the interest rate. But the BI together is the total investments dependent on the level of interest rate. We have already explained that there is a negative relationship between investments and interest rates. So graphically, we can show that negative relationship between investments. So assume that on the vertical axis we have the interest rates, which is the I, and on the horizontal axis we have planned investments, which is the level of investments, total investments. Okay. So assume that we have two different levels of investment. Interest rates. That this is the lower interest rates, maybe I0 or I0, and that is the high interest rates, I1. What is the expectation on the levels of planned investments? So at lower interest rates, because it is cheaper to borrow and invest and make profits, we expect to have high levels of investments, maybe as high as I0. So we have higher level of investments. So the lower level of investment of the two interest rates, the lower level of interest rates of the two, the I0, would correspond to a higher level of planned investments, like point A. And because of the same reason, the higher level of interest rates, such as I1, probably would correspond to some lower levels of planned investment, such as I1. Okay? So that if we join these 2 points, I'll call this point B, joining points A and B would give us the investment curve. Okay? So the investment curve I'll denote it by I. Okay? So this is a graph that indicates or shows plan investments given the levels of interest rates, which is a negative relationship. At lower interest rates, we expect more investments because it is cheap to borrow and invest and make profits. Similarly, at higher level of interest rate like I1, we expect that many people are disattracted. There will be disinvestments because it is very costly to borrow and therefore it will be hard to make profits out of the expensive borrowing by firms.